In my mind, it will always live the testimony of Antony Blinken, the highest ranking US official in front of Congress, when he described this scene about a group of Hamas terrorists went in, raped the woman, cut off her breast, gouged the eyes of the father, amputated the limb of the daughter, and cut off the finger of the little child, and then they sat down having breakfast. Who have the luxury to do that in a war zone? And also, where is the IDF during all of that? So we are supposed to believe that actually happened. No, that was debunked. That is the story that actually primed the world to accept and turn a blind eye for the horrible killing of it. But I have a few questions. First of all, that guy, Antony Blinken, never apologized for that.
Nope.
This was actually refuted many times, even by the Israeli media themselves.
Yep.
And he never took it back. And also, as a doctor, you know how hard it is to cut into breast tissue, into human tissue, using a box cutter? Like like you guys, like, are we fucking stupid? Are you talking to little kids? Even bedtime stories are more believable than this. So baby is in oven. That's different from the baby online clothes. It's different from the baby that was cut off from a pregnant woman in her womb. So these are three different babies. Get your facts checked.
Get my facts checked. And they're all, by the way, from these volunteer groups who are then
and they were all traumatized.
Hold on. Who are then quoted in the New York Times, in CNN, in all the media organizations, in the BBC, without journalists in the West doing the basic work to tell their readers, these guys have also said stuff that's completely discredited them. If you or I were eyewitnesses and made up stories like this, we would be laughed out of court, we would be laughed out of the media, we would be laughed out of our jobs. But I'm angry. No, but I'm angry because I'm a father, you're a father. They knew what they were doing by using babies as the way to justify. By the way, I should point out, recently in Rafah, we actually saw with our own eyes a decapitated baby.
But they don't care.
From an Israeli bomb.
But they're Palestinians. That cancels out.
They don't count.
So right here we have Bassem Youssef and Mehdi Hassans, probably two of the best voices for the cause in Gaza and Palestine. I found this podcast really interesting. I really enjoyed watching it, so I thought you would too. I took the whole 1 hour video, shortened it into 10 minutes, getting the best moments in here. Right now, what we notice is Mehdi Hassan and Bassem Youssef basically just showing what the strategy is of the Israeli propaganda. They just say these crazy, horrific, horrible headlines that are very graphic. And later on, everyone finds out that they were fake, but, the damage is done. And that's the unfortunate part. Many people do not end up realizing how fake it was.
The tragic irony of lying about something so horrific to then go do violence in Gaza, which actually caused real decapitated babies. Just one last point I want to say on the baby front as a journalist. One, the people who said that stuff have never been held to account, the journalists who propagated it. There's no corrections. No. Douglas Murray and John Podhoretz and all these pro-Israel pundits wrote columns in the media. There's no corrections appended. No one's gone back and put a correction at the bottom on a lot of these pieces. Israeli colonels are saying, I carried a beheaded baby in my arms. You should never trust that man again. He should be laughed out of all the court of public opinion and the media. Instead, we continue to platform them and give them weird respect and deference that we wouldn't give the North Korean military or the Russian military.
Dude, you already know how these people think. You are in a debate and you were booed when you mentioned Oxfam. So this is like people...
But that's what I'm saying. Those are the extremists. I'm talking about journalists who claim to be upholding, democratic skepticism, journalistic fact checks.
That doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work.
Israeli authorities. So Bassem, as you know, you've been following this for the last 8 months. The Israeli government and some of its defenders abroad, people like Sheryl Sandberg and others, have been stressing that the world has ignored the voices of Israeli Jewish women who were attacked, assaulted, taken hostage, and allegedly raped en masse, they say, on October the 7th. And some people, and I would include myself in this bucket, I would say there's 3 types of groups. There's one group of people who say, you must accept that there was mass rape on October 7th and that Hamas used it as a weapon of war. It was all part of the plan. There's another group of people who say, nobody was raped on October 7th. It's all Israeli propaganda. And there's me, and I put myself in this bucket that says, maybe there was. But where is the investigation? Where is the independent investigation? Why are the Israelis blocking independent investigators? If you want me to accept the Israeli government's word for it, I will.
Everyone knows exactly why they're blocking independent investigators. There's no other reason unless they're trying to hide something. Simple as that.
They say believe women. And we do believe women. But the problem is a lot of the reporting and a lot of the discourse has not involved women. It's involved Israeli spokespersons and evidence-free claims and UN investigators being blocked access. Credited multiple journalism professors have written an open letter saying the New York Times needs to investigate this piece. The witnesses have fallen
Their
apart.
own podcast. Their own
Daily.
podcast, The Daily, they canceled their episode about the
According to The
article
Intercept,
because there was not enough evidence, and then the New York Times went crazy. This is I come back to the idea. It's like evidence is a legal term. It's like, hey, I'm a pilot. Flying is an aviation term. I'm a gravity negotiator. If you crash, that's just turbulence expressing yourself.
It's worse. Gettleman said, my job is to move people. That is not the job of a journalist,
Wow.
actually. That's the job of a politician, of a propagandist,
So this is
of
like
a activist. It's not the job of a
So
journalist.
it's like, hey, I'm a doctor. My job is not to heal people. My job is to cut people. This is how bad this is. They do.
I want to put in context, Shari Mendez, I should point out, is an Israeli with no experience.
More
no forensic,
volunteer.
no experience in law, no experience in this field of sexual violence, no forensic experience, told lies about fetuses being ripped from wombs. So, Bassem, we could talk about Shari Mendez and her lack of credibility, Raz Cohen. We could talk about how the article, again, I just want to be clear because people are going to clip this and say, you're a rape denier. No, I'm saying that I want to hear what happened to Israeli women on October 7th, but what we're getting is bullshit. It's not helping the cause. I interviewed a Democratic congressman recently and I told him about these allegations of rape with hot metal rods against Palestinian men. He said, I never knew any of this. I didn't know any of this. It's amazing. That member of Congress claimed they didn't even know about what's happening.
You said Palestinian prisoners are being raped to death by Israeli soldiers?
Yes, this is a report in the New York Times last week.
Okay, I don't.
That's actually crazy that he didn't know, because if it's on the New York Times, that's mainstream media. They should be up to date on this type of stuff.
I don't believe that to be true. Nonetheless, the
A
question.
41-year-old
But again, they are paid.
detainee said the interrogators made me sit on something like a hot metal stick and it felt like fire. He said another detainee died after they put the electric stick up his anus.
No, it's repulsive.
And yet, as a day, we've had this kind of onslaught of coverage. And I just want to, you said broaden it beyond.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. This is exactly how how they react to you when they tell them about this. When they tell them that like a horrible atrocity happened on the other side to the Palestinians,
They're not deniers.
they said, "Oh, this is terrible, horrible. Oh my God, let's talk now about October 7th. Let's talk about the Israeli hostages. Let's talk about
And we
the
don't
women."
call them rape deniers.
Yeah.
And of course, some Israeli women have denied this stuff, including the sisters of Gal Abdush, the woman at the center of the New York Times piece. They say our sister wasn't raped. The New York Times made this up. So where does
It's like America says, like, no. We know, you were. It's
Yeah,
like
we'll
like
tell
that.
you. We'll
It
tell you what
happened
happened
to
to
you.
you.
It happened to you.
The UN report that we've mentioned many times on this show, I urge people to go look at the UN COI report, Commission of Investigation, Commission of Inquiry. It said that specific forms of sexual and gender-based violence are part of ISF, Israeli Security Force, operating procedures. You put it so well, every accusation is a confession. We haven't been able to find evidence that Hamas used sexual violence as a weapon of war.
Wow, every accusation is a confession. That's deep. Basically, what it's saying is that they're projecting whatever they do, they're projecting it onto the Palestinians. They are the ones that are raping people, Palestinians, and yet they're saying that those are the ones that are doing it to the Israelis. They are the ones that are, fortunately, killing newborns and kids, and they're saying that Palestinians are doing it.
We do know that there are credible claims of sexual violence on October the 7th. But here the UN is saying that the ISF use it as part of their operating procedures. This is what they do.
There's their MO. Their MO, man.
But no one cares. But no one cares. As you say, the Colonel Nof Erez says it was, don't take our words for it, that the two brown dudes, he says it was a mass Hannibal event on 7th of October.
A mass
Hannibal event. Lots of shooting going on. And look, anyone can read the UN report for themselves. They lay out the examples we
Who
talked
cares
about.
about UN?
We talked about the kibbutz berry, yeah. Well,
Nobody cares.
They don't care, but
They don't care.
some of
like,
us care.
listen, like, I mean,
No, I actually don't think anyone cares about the UN. They have lost any credibility that they've had throughout the years. I can't think of a single thing that the UN has done, unfortunately. And in terms of Israel and Gaza, they have been totally useless.
Israel has always been playing like international limbo. You know, like it's like when the international is like how low can we get? It's like not low enough. This is how low they get. They always go low. I mean, Israel interpretation of international law is my daughter's interpretation of her bedtime. It works when it suits her.
Yep.
So it's just like it really doesn't matter anymore.
No, he needs to have an investigation. What annoys me, Bassem, as a journalist, is I don't expect the Israeli government to do an investigation, but I do expect media organizations to do an investigation. Since the UN put out their report last week where they confirmed the Hannibal directive was used, they identified people who were killed, they identified cars that were attacked. Do you know how many British or American newspapers or news organizations have covered the Hannibal directive?
Zero.
One.
Who?
The Telegraph, the right-wing newspaper in the UK.
Does anybody
but
read
they did it in a way that criticized the idea that you would say this. So there's no coverage of Hannibal. No coverage of what might have happened on October 7th. You would think that if it is the biggest terrorist attack, the 9/11 of our time, you would think there would be a lot of media coverage of what actually happened on the day, and there isn't, right? You and I have to sit on a podcast and tell
Why don't
people...
we talk about October 7th the way that we want you to talk about?
Exactly.
Also, if you enjoy watching videos like this where I watch a whole podcast and shorten it up into a 10 to 15 minute video for your convenience and to save you time, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Only about 4% of you, I believe, have subscribed to my channel out of all of the viewers I get. Subscribe to this channel today. And also, if you really want to help support this channel, become a member. Channels like these where I post this type of controversial content oftentimes get demonetized or shadow banned, etc. And you becoming a member really does help out. The link will be in the description below. Now, let's continue watching.
Let's talk about the response of the IDF. Let's talk because Israel is a country that is funded by the United States and is funded to keep security and to protect its people. Let's talk about the response of the IDF. It took 6 hours for IDF forces to come and reach the kibbutz. 6 hours. Israel, for people who don't know, is as small as New Jersey. It is that small and it's that horrible. It's as small as New Jersey, right? And in that small area, they have more military bases and more airfields than America has a Starbucks. And it is everywhere. The response time in a place like this that is heavily populated with military bases should be less than 5 minutes. It took them 6 hours. 6 hours. Did this?
6 hours is insane for that size. For reference, for those of you who don't know how big New Jersey is or how far, I believe you could get from one side of New Jersey to the other probably in like 3 hours, maybe less, maybe a little bit more. It's really small. It's not that big.
Stop to ask for directions. Well, I mean, were they using an old Garmin GPS? What the hell? Were they following the North Star and get lost? How can it take... I could have watched the last season of Succession in those 6 hours. 6 hours to reach, and we are supposed to pay for that kind of service?
By the way...
I mean, I'm fine. I mean, kill all Palestinians. I don't care. Kill everybody. But at least if I'm paying for a service, for a military, they should just come up with a better service.
You said that, did they stop for directions? Maybe they were using Waze, which is founded
no,
by an
even
Israeli.
Waze would get you faster. No. Waze, yes, but even Waze would say even Waze would say I think you're too slow.
One day we will find out why it took so long. But as I say, the Israelis are not interested in investigation. The Israeli media is asking questions, and the Western media is absent. And so
I don't think that truth has an expiration date. It's not like, after 3 months you can not talk about it anymore. History is made to be revised and analyzed and criticized and scrutinized.
Yeah.
And the fact that you put a limit on what you talk about, this is actually against what this country is all about.